What's good, guys? My Kid here, back again for some more Patreon requests. Patrons, yes, I am delivering on my promise to you guys. I'm trying to get your requests out as fast as I can. I apologize for the delays. But this time around, we're going with Duke Lawton. Duke asks me, he is a one of my gamma level tier members. Gamma level guys, you are able to create a segment for me, and I will do it. You got to give me the rules or anything like that, or you can. I will do two top lists for you. Doesn't matter. It could be a top 10, top 20, top whatever list. Duke here of one of his uh top list is uh top 10 episodes of Static Shock. It's really cool that I'm doing this in time, especially because it is Black History Month, and Static is a very well-known African American superhero. So yeah, I thought it'd be great to I thought this was great and cool to do. I was always a fan of Static. I just want to get that out there before anything. I know a lot of people jumped on the series because of the cartoon series that the late great Dwayne McDuffie created. Shouts out to him. I know yesterday, I believe it was 2 days ago, was his birthday. He would have been 62, I believe. Man. But we all know it ran on the WB network, or now called the CW network. Uh, Here in New York, it was the WB 11, uh, and it was started in 2001 and ran to 2004. Had 4 seasons and things like that. So my favorite 10 of my favorite episodes. So I guess I'm not gonna do it in order. Like, okay, well, this was my favorite, but let's. I mean, we have to kick it off with the first episode, "Shock to the System." This was the introduction for everybody to understand who Virgil Hawkins was, and who his friend Richie was, and how close they were, and how smart of a student Virgil was. We get an introduction to him, his parents, his father, his sister Sharon, and things like that. And of course, we get an indication of how he got his powers. So he definitely, episode one, the very first episode, "Shock to Your System," definitely is on the list. Number three, excuse me, number two on the list comes from season one, two, called "The Breed." In this episode, Virgil helps a fellow student named Derek Barnett. He was a track and field star, and he needed to get his grades up, but he was also a bang baby, and he turned into this walking, uh, big, bulking energy being, and he called himself Destruct. This was like the first episode we saw Ebon and the meta breed, and it's one of my favorite episodes because it was funny because just what Virgil was saying in this just cracked me up every time. Like just things like like there was one time I think Shiv, the little Asian guy with the he can make kinetic swords. He kept making fun of him, and Virgil hit him with his glider, and he said, "That's what you get for dissing me." And I love that. It was funny. It cracks me up every time I watch that episode. So yeah. Um, Another episode in season one is "Sons of the Fathers." I love this episode. This was an episode that really touched on um, certain aspects of Richie. The episode pretty much goes that Richie is always at Virgil's house, and Virgil wants to spend the night, spend time at Richie's house. But we realize that Richie's father is basically a racist. He's a borderline racist. He Virgil overhears him, talking about him to his wife, and he's like, "Yeah, now I know where Richie gets his attitude. His kind of all his kind of like that. And now I got one of them in my house." I'm like, and it broke Richie's heart. It broke Virgil's heart. It broke his heart to hear that. But and of course, Mr. Hawkins, gives a big stern talking to Richie's dad. But over time, he starts to change it for the better, and it was uh it was worth it. It was really, but this was a really good episode. I love that episode so much. I love when Richie's mom calls Virgil and she's about to say something, and she says, Virgil, and he says, I know. He's, it's okay. Like he knew what she was gonna say. Like they touched on some real good themes in the show, and I think a lot of people forget. Just this was a Saturday morning cartoon, but shouts out to Dwayne McDuffie and the whole creative team for this. They really touched on a lot of things. So that's number 3 on the list. Um, uh, another favorite episode that I have, because I got my list right here. I'm just looking at it. Uh, Another favorite is Replay. This was the 12th episode in the first season. So basically, this was an episode where Virgil fought a metahuman called Replay, voiced by um, Neil Patrick Harris. He was a former child star, and he became a he can make duplicates of himself. And I kind of like it because it does play up Neil Patrick Harris in a sense, because Neil Patrick Harris is, we if you're Charlie age, you know him as Doogie Howser. I love Neil Patrick Harris. Like, and he became, work wasn't, his acting career wasn't doing so well later on as he got older, so he turned to crime. And when Virgil fights him, Replay makes a clone of him, a duplicate of Static, and the cops start going after Static because they think he turned bad. Uh, but I literally love it because there's one scene where Virgil he there's one episode where Virgil sees Replay, and he's talking to his duplicate, and he's like, "Did Static follow you?" He's like, "I don't know," and he just makes him disappear, and just shows you the type of person Virgil is. When he gets him, he's like, and he's and Replays like, "You see, I told you he followed us," and he's like, "Forget that." And this is Virgil's talking. He's like, "Forget that. You just killed your own brother." And then that's where we find out that he can, if he just snaps his finger, he can make. He's like multiple man. It was really cool. But yes, that's definitely another one of my favorites. That's 4. Number 5 definitely is the episode where we started to really see Virgil. Uh, it called the Big Leagues. This was the season premiere of season 2, where he teams up with Batman and Robin. I do love that episode. I do love this episode a lot. Joker comes to Dakota and uses a lot of the metahumans of Dakota and try to wreak havoc. And Batman at first is kind of cold to Virgil, but not Tim, because that's Tim Drake Robin. He's like, "Hey, Static," "Hey, Static," and he's like, "Yeah, I can't believe I'm shaking hands with Robin, the boy wonder." He's like, kind of go easy on the boy. I'm getting older. I can't be called boy. It was fun. The episode ended with uh the episode ended where um Joker is like, "Oh, forgive me, please, Batman, help me," and he had like a hand buzzer, and so he shocks. He's thinking shocking Batman, but he says he's shocking Virgil, and Virgil says, "That looks fun. Let me try it," and he shocks him back. It was funny. This was also the episode that actually integrated Static into the rest of the DC animated universe. So yeah, it was fun. Definitely like that. Um, was that so that's number 5. Number 6 on the list is a holiday episode that really touched me really good. This is called Frozen Out. And it's the episode with the Bang Baby permafrost. Um, I love this episode a lot because it touched on the aspects of homelessness. Permafrost was this metahuman who makes ice, and it looks like it also comes down. Also was played off with her emotions, and Virgil was trying to find her and help her, and he had took a picture of her mother, and she went on a tirade looking for him, and she's like, "Give me back my," and and she just was wrecking havoc. She was almost created an ice age right in the city, and Virgil is trying to tell her, "Look, I care," and she's going on like nobody cares when you're homeless. Everybody looks through. It's just a very very touching episode, and I love where Virgil's like, "Look, no, please, I care," and he's like, and she's like, "How do you? Why?" And she says, "Look," and he says, "I because I lost my mom too," and ooh, that one that got me that hit hard really. So that episode, this was the fifth episode in season two. This hits very hard, very quickly. So yeah, uh, that's six. Uh, um, Another episode, number seven on the list for me is the episode Jimmy. Jimmy, this episode touched on gun control, and it was a very anti-bullying episode where this kid named Jimmy was constantly bullied by the jocks of the school that Virgil and them went to. Jimmy was kind of a big geek, he was one of us, but people didn't see him that way. And when he got real close to certain people, Rita, for example, he had a real big crush on her, and um, Jimmy came back to school later that day with a gun from his dad's drawer, and he was pointing it at the bully, and he's like, "What's that?" And he's like, "It's a gun." He's like, all these things about it wasn't funny when you broke this, and he's pointing it at the bullet, like he's ready to shoot, and he can't do it at first, and then they grab him, and the gun goes off and it shoots Richie in the leg, and Static is too late because it's kind of a telling, like Virgil is sitting down talking with a school psychiatrist about it. um but yeah, it was a really good episode. It was about bullying, being bullied at school, and sometimes you know gun control, but also just when you're bullied, sometimes you get bullied too much, you go too far with it, and you could either hurt yourself or hurt somebody else. And Jimmy got hurt in the process. He shot somebody by accident. It wasn't really his fault. The gun went off. It hit Richie in the leg, and Richie. They even played it up. Richie's like, "Oh, it's not like in the movies and things like that." So it was a really really touching episode. It was really good. Again, I love that. So that was number seven. Um, Number eight, I love is Static in Africa. This was the episode where the Hawkings go take a trip to Africa. They're in Western Africa, and their Static meets Anansi, who is a local African hero in the episode. He is named after the same Yaropa. Is it Yopra? I believe it, but it's the West African trickster god Anansi the Spider, and he was really cool. And he fought his arch nemesis, the Leopard, voiced by Michael Jai White. Michael Jai White did the voice for the Leopard. It was a really cool episode because it reminded me of. I wonder if the writers got this idea kind of from Shaft when Shaft went to Africa. So it was kind of cool. But I love this episode, and I love Static gets to work with a hero, uh and he even brings it up at the end when he's about to leave, and he's basically like, yeah, it's really good to see, I back home I don't get to meet a lot of heroes that look like me, a black hero, and Anansi basically says heroes come in all shapes. And basically even says you're inspiration to me. You inspire me, and it's a really good episode. I love that episode very much. So Static in Africa is the eighth. Number nine on the list uh is the uh is an episode called is the episode Toys in the Attic. This episode was introduced was basically the introduction of Superman into the series, and in this episode actually continued where the Superman animated series left off with the Toy Man and his creation Darcy. In this episode, Darcy um, had had moved to Dakota, and she is now a teacher, and um she wanted to take over Daisy's life. So she wanted to have take Daisy's body, um, because that's what the whole episode was about. If you remember the episode from Superman the animated series, there was an episode where Toyman had a toy, but she was like a life size Barbie doll that her name was Darcy, and but she wanted to be more real and things like that. So she tried to take over um, Daisy's body. Daisy was the other kind of love interest, new girl next to Frida in the show, but she was cool. Um, the last episode, and of course, the my my 10th favorite episode. There's so many, but my 10th favorite episode of Static is the episode called it was the episode where Static uh, is called Flashback. It's called Flashback. Yeah, I thought it was called Past Blast from the Past. It's called Flashback. Um this is an episode this was an episode where Static gets to go back in time, and he meets his mother. He gets to interact with his mother. His mother was a EMT operative. She worked for him. She was an EMT, so and during that night, she got shot and killed, saving people. She was ambulance, and he tries to save her from that, and he uh he gets her, he shows him, and he tells her like, please don't go down there, like just stay up here, and everything will be all right. And it's just oh that episode gets me every time because I've told you guys many times I would do anything um to have my mother in my life again. And that one, anytime it has something to do with a mother, it hits really hard, and I'm already tearing up, and I knew I was going to tear up. But the episode Flashback is definitely I believe it's called Flashback. It's definitely an episode where um uh Static, Richie, who is now Gear, and there's a metahuman that can go back in time. They get to see, and and he thought she would stay up there, but she didn't. He didn't change the past, and we find out that later. But it was a very very touching episode. I love that episode so much. Um, so yeah, those are 10 of my favorite episodes of Static Shock. Like I said, there were so many episodes. There are more that I love. Like, you know, I love the episodes that introduced new villains or new characters. Like I love the first time they introduced Rubber Band Man and things like that. I love when Richie realized that he was becoming a metahuman and he became Gear. I remember the episode. I love the episode where um the character Shebang, she was like kind of like she wasn't a metahuman, but she was like uh, a super test tube baby that two scientists made of her. Um, so many episodes, and of course, there was the episode uh, where Virgil's dad found out that his son was static. There's so many. It was good. And then, of course, and then it was all those episodes with guest stars like when Shaq was on it. I think Lance Bass from the back. No, not that Lance. AJ, one of the Backstreet Boys, and some of those episodes I didn't care for. When Little Romeo was on, I was like, okay. But outside of that, it was fun. So thank you, Duke. Thank you, Duke Lawton, for the request. Thank you for this took me down memory lane with a lot of these episodes. I love Static, and I would love, and I'm glad people like Static as well. Does he deserve more? Yes. But you know, I'm still hoping and praying for the movie. Static deserves a live action movie. But outside of that, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You tell me in the comment section below, what are some of your favorite episodes? You could. I would love to hear. I loved it. If you a fan of Static, that's the first thing too. Were you a fan of Static, or were you not? But outside of that, you guys take care. Deuces.